My challenge as an external is that I have very little time to build up trust and safety when I come into a new team. And what I've found out, what works really well is when Haesun Moon introduced her dialogic orientation quadrant. That I was very excited and introduced it. And I realized when I was introduced to that in my coach training, my solution focused coach training, people very quickly got the idea of what is SF about. Much easier than before I started using the model. So I could actually do it more efficiently. I could leave out some of my ways of introducing it before. And I started experimenting when I met new groups of people, new teams. And I don't know if you have experienced that, but sometimes people could really sit with the arms crossed and say, yes, okay. So now here we have the consultant. He's brought in by the manager to make us do the right things. Do we really want to do that? And when I then started to say, before we go into the process, before we start doing this, I'll just let you know how I'm working. You know, in the work we have to do today, we can have four positions. We can have a position in the future where we're talking about what do we want? How would that look like? And we can have a position in the past where we talked about what has been working well in that direction so far. What are we good at? What can we do that points in that direction? But there's also something we have met in the position in the past that was really bad. There have been conflicts where there are humans, there are discussions, there are disagreements, there are conflicts, big or small, and that we carry into this process as well. And based on that troubled past, we can, of course, imagine what would go wrong in the future. So if I have to be efficient together with you today, because I'm not employed at the same place as you are, I will leave it sometimes. Then I would prefer to be up in quadrant 1 and 2. Again, 1 is the preferred future, 2 is the resourceful past, and quadrant 3 is the troubled past, and quadrant 4 is the dreaded future. But I am sure that that of course there are times where things don't go well. So we will talk. I will open up for we are talking about that, but I just want to create the awareness that when we are talking, we know where we are in this conversation. And this has been extremely helpful for me. I prefer to draw it on a flip chart so it hangs visible in the room. Or if it's online group work, then it's reminding them or actually sending them this one, I just say. And please interrupt me anytime. If you are in doubt, you can ask me, yes, but where are you right now? You know, so are you in quadrant 3, the trouble past, or what are you talking about? And this actually, I make a, what you call a psychological contract with people. So I always bid them in and take responsible for the process. And I relate it to this model because I think it's simple. Everybody can nod to that and say, yes, of course, we are in these four positions when we are talking together. And for me, it helps. It becomes a tool for me in the process as well and say, okay, when you talk about we need to change the system because it's not good, where are you at the moment? You know, and do you want to stay there? Should we focus on that? So if the people say, yeah, we have so many crappy meetings, oh yeah, we have so many things that doesn't work, say, okay, so you are in the troubled past. Would you like to stay there for a while? Should we focus on that? What do you say, team? And if they say, yes, we need to talk about what's wrong. You know, in my young days as a solution-focused practitioner, I was just really, I'm coming here, we talk about the preferred future, we talk about what's working, and people got really annoyed. They felt not acknowledged when things are not working. And this is what I've learned to really spend time to say, okay, so it hasn't been working till now. It still is not working. So how do you manage to do your work despite that it doesn't work? So try still for me, not teaching them how to talk with each other, but following them around. And I actually found out it's much easier for me as well to be respectful and asking, so where are you at the moment?
Something was just, I kept getting these vibes, and people came to me and said, we don't have trust between us. And I was really for a long time like problem focused here. I wondered what is going on and how can I fix it? And I really didn't know what to do. So one day I gave them, we had some strength-based questions about when do they enjoy work, when are they doing the best work, and so on. So I actually formulated just another question saying that, what is it that they're actually missing in their group discussions? What is it, what do they need for it to really work? And everybody present came up with this word. And then I've said to them, can you try and interview each other and ask the question, what differences would you notice if we succeeded to be more beep in our case discussions? And it was really interesting to see them talk to each other and interviewing each other. And the way it actually built a lot of trust and acknowledgement and all these things just by asking that question. And the next group meeting, we have it every week. And after, I think 2 weeks went by because there was a break at some point. And I asked them, do we need to talk more about these problems? And they said, no, I think we already solved it. We already know what we're looking for. So I said, okay, to follow up, could you just, and then I gave them their answers back because made them write all these things down. So I just said, can you just look through it before we have the case discussions today? And just look for times during the case discussions where this really happens. And then we'll just evaluate afterwards and see where we actually succeed. And it was just a really good feedback, and people were just so respectful and great. And I put the last point here in the end, like one of the challenges of being a manager and trying to change the way people work to a more solution-focused, more helpful manner is how to squeeze it in the normal work. And so often, especially when we implemented solution-focused practice, we spend a lot of time saying, how much on these case discussions, how much focus should we put on really just practicing the method, and how much focus on actually getting something out of it? And of course, there is a great overlap that you can get something out while practicing, but sometimes it also feels like you could get a better output if you did it differently and not so solution focused and so on. So we really battle this. And so as a manager, it's just to kind of constantly look for what I call like glimpses of preferred future and to highlight it, but even better for them to highlight it themselves. It's just very helpful doing the ordinary work because we really don't have time for a very long introduction to methods and so on. So people have to work the way they actually already can do and find useful for them. Yeah. Started a coffee meeting Monday morning, and especially because we had many young mothers employed, I said, let's just take a few moments here in peace and quiet and let's enjoy and get ready for the work week. But actually, I introduced this thing about what happened last week that made your job meaningful. And it was really touching for them just to share these stories amongst themselves. And I mean, that was a better motivation than any speech I could come up with, right? Because it was real stories of how they had succeeded in that job. And sometimes at that time where we were implementing solution focus, there was a lot of their focus. So they would actually share with each other at these meetings how they had used some of these methods, and that was helpful, but also just stories of how, their work really made sense. So it doesn't take much, I think. Oh, you can do a lot over a cup of coffee.
Mm. I once had a client who really came. We had to start the coaching session, and then he was just like, "Oh, I really screwed up big time a meeting where I had. I had such an important meeting with some other clients, and I just completely screwed it up. I don't know. I'm considering maybe looking for another job because I'm sure I will get fired for what I've done. I simply don't know what to do. And then I used what I've been using a couple of since many years, Michael Yates micro tools. From the philosophy, there's always a best you did. So I asked him, so okay, this rotten situation, okay, you really, really screwed it up, and there's no way you can reverse it. What was the best thing you did? That was a bit of a, what do you mean, the best thing I did? I screwed up, I just told you. So, yeah, but in this screwed up situation, what was actually the best thing you did? And he was thinking, what a weird question, What do you want to do? I said, try and think about it. Just try and give it. I know it's a difficult question. And he said, well, actually, that I stayed calm. I mean, we had some really heavy discussions and I let my temper walk off, but then I came back and stayed calm. Okay. I said, okay. So what would the other part say was the best thing you did? And he was just laughing. I said, what do you mean, the best thing? He would kill me. I'm sure he's calling my boss right away and say, you never send that man again, or I will terminate any contracts we have with your company. I said, yeah, but give it a try. Just give it a try. What would he say was the best thing you did? And he was thinking for a long time and said, I think it would be that I said, hey, shouldn't we make another meeting and start all over again? I said, okay. How did you manage to do that? I mean, you screwed up. You completely screwed up. So how did you manage to ask him for another meeting? I said, well, yeah, but we had to take care of it somehow. I had to do something. I couldn't just let it be open like this. I said, okay. So what would you do differently or more of next time you either have the meeting with him or where you have a similar meeting where you screw up? Maybe you screw up again. Who knows? So what would you do then based on what you know now about from this situation? And then we have a very constructive talking about what we could go into details. What did he do well? So there's always a best you did in whatever situation. And being able to see what would the other ones, this was a horrible situation, but what would they say was the best I did? Is a very difficult question. But if they think about it, it's so rich in what the outcome of it. And the rest of it, what can I learn from this situation and how can I use it for the future? So it's something that I love when people come and say, oh, it's horrible. Oh, I'm in a deep hole. I can't get out. It's impossible. I've just made a horrible mistake or I don't know, I am to blame and how can I ever get on with it? Then say stop. And people actually afterwards say, oh, it wasn't that bad. Yes, it was bad. It was a mistake. It was whatever it was. But okay, I did actually somehow get through it.